Hey y'all, so I'm making another video. If you hear a noise, it is my grandfather mowing the lawn. So sorry about that. So I don't normally do these videos, but I wanted to make this before the season premiere of Game of Thrones. Basically, this is my Game of Thrones theory video, or like more realistically, who I want to see. No, but seriously. So basically, all of these theories, I didn't come up with these theories, these are actually like existing theories, I'm not the only person. Also, if I glance this way, I'm looking at my computer, but yeah, these are existing theories, and I mean, like, if you disagree with me, that's fine, because these aren't like facts, obviously, they're theories, these are my opinions on how things might go. Also, they're kind of like what I want to happen, so yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Maybe you agree with me. If you don't, tell me why. So my first theory is that Sansa and Jon will be married. Yes, Sansa Stark and Jon Snow. Now, the reason that I'm thinking this, there's many things that could point out that this might happen. A few being that, obviously, they're not brother and sister. That has already been pointed out in this last season. In the last season, they pointed out that Jon is a Targaryen. So that's not like some like theory anymore. That is a straight up fact that Jon is not Ned's son. That he is in fact Rhaegar Targaryen's son, obviously. Now, there are some theories talking about, you know how George R.R. Martin is about not everything is supposed to be predictable in his stories. So Jon might not ever find out that he's a Targaryen. But I think that if they didn't, it'd be kind of like having all of this, finding out he's a Targaryen for no reason. And some ways that he might find out, it's already been hinted that Littlefinger knows that Jon is not Ned's son. So he might tell Sansa, and it wouldn't surprise me, but he knows that Sansa's kind of after power. And he's like trying to show her that she's after power and she could be more powerful than anybody else. But at the same time, I don't think she would tell her, because it's more than obvious that Littlefinger wants to end up with Sansa. I don't know if I'm the only person that thinks that, but he's trying to get with Sansa because of her mom. You know, he was in love with her mom. So, you know, he could totally tell her, like, by the way, Jon's not your brother. He's a Targaryen. He's like the rightful person for the Iron Throne. So that might happen. But then also, if Jon finds out that he isn't Ned's son, that means that Sansa and Jon are not brother and sister. They're in fact cousins. Doesn't mean he's not a Stark at all, because his mother was Lyanna Stark. So that means they would be cousins. And the reason I think that that could still be a possibility of them ending up together is because we already saw earlier in the show that Sansa was supposed to marry Robin Arryn, which is also her cousin. She was supposed to marry him. All of this kind of plays into the fact that Sansa wants to marry a king, you know, and we saw this early on when she wanted to marry Joffrey. She wanted to be with Joffrey before we found out that he was a little shithead. All of this plays into that, and on top of that, what reason would they have to not marry Sansa and Jon? Because I personally don't think that Jon is gonna marry Daenerys, because that would be too obvious, you know, and it would make sense for Jon and Daenerys to get married, but realistically speaking, and how George R.R. Martin kind of does things, it would probably be Sansa and Jon. Or, unfortunately, it could be Sansa and Littlefinger, because he fucking snake. He's a snake. He'll figure it out, you know, he always does. He seems to be the only person knowing what's going on everywhere, besides, you know, Lord Varys. But yeah, that's one of my theories, is that Sansa and Jon will get married, because he will find out who he is, and it's not that, like, incestual thing because of brother and sister, because they're not. My second theory is that Daenerys and Yara could end up together. And the reason that I think this is, come on, we all saw that scene.
Has the Iron Islands ever had a queen before?
No more than Westeros.
Our uncle Euron returned home after a long absence. He murdered our father and took the Salt Throne from Yara. He would have murdered us if we'd stayed.
Lord Tyrion tells me your father was a terrible king.
You and I have that in common.
We do. And both murdered by a usurper as well. Will their ships be enough?
With the former master's fleet, possibly. Barely. There are more than 100 ships in the Iron Fleet.
There are, and Euron is building more. He's going to offer them to you.
So why shouldn't I wait for him?
The Iron Fleet isn't all he's bringing. He also wants to give you...
His big... I think he said. Euron's offer is also an offer of marriage, you see. You won't get one without the other.
And I imagine your offer is free of any marriage demands.
I never demand, but I'm up for anything, really.
He murdered our father and would have murdered us. He'll murder you as soon as you have what he wants.
The Seven Kingdoms.
All of them.
And you don't want the Seven Kingdoms.
Your ancestors defeated ours and took the Iron Islands. We ask you to give them back.
And that's all.
We'd like you to help us murder an uncle or two who don't think a woman's fit to rule.
Reasonable.
What if everyone starts demanding their independence?
She's not demanding, she's asking. The others are free to ask as well. Our fathers were evil men, all of us here. They left the world worse than they found it. We're not going to do that. We're going to leave the world better than we found it. You will support my claim as Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, and respect the integrity of the Seven Kingdoms. No more reaving, roving, raiding, or raping.
That's our way of life.
No more.
No more.
And on top of that, Yara's into girls. This has already been shown and proven, you know? So, like, if that was to happen, like, I wouldn't be surprised. And after seeing that scene, it was just kind of like, oh, that could totally happen, you know? But, like, there are a few things that could discredit this. One being that if you saw the trailer, I think it was in the trailer, I'm not sure, Yara and Ilaria has something, I guess, that's gonna happen in season 7, so that's also a thing. But also Daenerys' feelings for Daario Naharis. What's gonna happen there? She left because she knew that she needed to make alliances through marriage. That's why it's kind of like, oh, Yara and Daenerys, you know, alliance, marriage. But, you know, she left him behind, and I don't think Yara would be like, oh yeah, I'll share, you know? Sorry, it sounds so weird, but, like, they could end up together, but there's always that, like, she has a thing with Daario Naharis. But then also, like, something that might be, like, discrediting this theory is that it might be slightly frowned upon for a leader to be homosexual in Westeros, because we already saw what happened with Loras, with King Renly, you know. Then again, that was with all those religious people that were like, shame. You know, so like, it could be totally frowned upon, but at the same time, it wouldn't be unrealistic for them to end up together. You know, it's a possibility, but that's also like not really a thing that people are like, well, I can't say that nobody's thought about it, because when I go on YouTube, I can find so many videos that people put together of Yara and Daenerys, you know, so it's definitely, like, not an unheard of thing. It's kind of like that whole thing with Cara Danvers and Lena Luthor. They could totally end up together, especially with, you know, that's a whole nother video. Yeah, Daenerys and Yara, that could totally be a thing, and I truly believe that that could happen next season. And the last theory that I had was that Arya and Gendry could end up together. One, there's history between the two. Obviously, they viewed each other as like, oh, like, that's my really, really good close friend, unless they were totally viewing each other as brother and sister, but I highly doubt that. He is technically a highborn because he is Robert Baratheon's son, but he is a bastard. Unless you believe in the theory that that's actually the child that Robert and Cersei had that died, because there is a theory that that child never died, he was just hidden. So there's a possibility that that could be like a legitimate kid, but that's not like a highly thought of theory. But since he is highborn, he could technically be legitimized, and I can't see that not happening. If he's legitimized, it's probably going to be by Jon Snow or Daenerys, and it's because they could totally form an alliance with him. I think he's going to become a big thing. And they didn't show a lot of him in the trailer. I think it was because they didn't want to give away a whole lot about that. And it's just kind of like the mystery of the trailer. But, like, come on, he's going to be legitimized. He's going to find out who he is. Not that he didn't know already. And on top of this, Jon would probably do it because he views him as an ally, and also because of the relationship between their fathers. And although Ned was never really his father, he still probably views Ned Stark as that father figure because he was the one that took care of him. So he would see it as honoring his father by helping Gendry, who is the son of his father's best friend. And then on top of that, we've seen that Arya has grown up since season 1. with her whole
I don't want to be a lady
speech, you know? If you know what I'm talking about. She told her father that she didn't want to be a lady, and that was all that stuff with having the sword and stuff. She probably has changed from that, but on top of that, there's already a scene where she's talking to Gendry.
They need good men.
Rob needs good men too. We're leaving tomorrow. And then
What? Serve him? Look, I've served men my entire life. I served Master Mott at King's Landing, and he sold me to the Watch. I served Lord Tywin at Harrenhal, wondering every day if I'd get tortured or killed. I'm done serving.
You just said you were serving Lord Beric.
He may be their leader, but they chose him. These men are brothers. They're a family. I've never had a family.
I can be your family.
You wouldn't be my family. You'd be my lady.
When he says, I don't have a family, and she says, I'll be your family, you know? Basically, now, since she's grown up and she's kind of started to fulfill everything she's needed to with killing people on her list. Obviously, she hasn't killed everybody, but she's gotten pretty far. Maybe she realizes, you know, it's time to settle down, or even after all the war, if the two are still around, like, there's no reason why they couldn't end up together. And on top of that, who better for Arya than Gendry? It kind of seems like in Game of Thrones, yeah, there's true love, but a lot of the marriages aren't because of true love. George R.R. Martin, like I said, does talk a lot about how the ending is bittersweet, and I think that that means that a lot of stuff good happens, but it's not the way that you wanted it to happen. So it's kind of like, this might not happen, but at the same time, this could be part of this bittersweet and the ending, because I think Arya deserves a break. You know, since day one, she's been having all this stuff happen to her, from having to run away and pretend to be a boy and work for Tywin Lannister's servant people. And from that, she was kind of with the mountain and getting there too late to save her mother. You know, I strongly believe that she deserves to catch a break. And she started to do that kind of with all the Walder Frey stuff. You know, she finally killed Walder Frey because he's responsible for the death of her mother and her brother. So I truly believe that Arya deserves a break, and I think that her and Gendry should totally end up together. You know, that's just my opinion. That might not happen, but I think that that should happen. So yeah, those are basically my 3 theories for this season. I didn't really go into depth about, like, oh, I think that this one sword is gonna kill this one person because it's been foreshadowed. No, like, these are just, like, a little more obvious with slight proof that they might happen, but not like, oh, the theory that Rhaegar Targaryen's still alive and he's secretly a faceless man. You know, like, that's not how I wanted to do this. These are just basically the relationships that I want to see in season 7. So yeah, so these are my Game of Thrones theories. I hope you enjoyed, and don't forget to catch the season premiere. Thank you guys so much for watching, and like this video, leave a comment about anything else that you guys want to see. So yeah, just ask me questions, and I'll do some type of video that you guys want me to do. Okay, bye.